So instead of going through the kind of drawn out eviction process, mostly right now, what's another alternative, right? You can't just go change the locks, kick people out, do crazy stuff like that. It's against the law. But there is one option that you could try that sometimes works. So, what is that option? Well, cash for keys is one very good option. So what's cash for keys, right? So cash for keys, you're pretty much telling the tenant, like, hey, if you just move out on, I don't know, 10, whatever, give them a time frame, we will give you X amount of dollars if you move out on this date, right? So the first thing you always want to let a tenant know is, hey, if we do go through eviction process, it's going to be on your, it's not on your credit, on your background maybe. It's like an eviction report you can pull. And you can let them know that, hey, if this is on your background, on your eviction report that you have been evicted, it makes it much more difficult to get a new place, right? Like when we're getting new tenants, if they've had an eviction within the past 5 or 7 years, we don't take them, right? So that's the first thing you always want to tell people, and you always want to tell people that from the very get-go, right? Even if you don't do cash for keys. And this is like, cash for keys is like the second thing you do after they're like, yeah, no, I'm not leaving, right? So you just want to reinstate that. And the other thing, you can tell them like, hey, look, for me to go through this eviction process, it's going to cost me X amount of dollars to evict you. And I would rather pay you that money for moving out instead of the courts and lawyers and everything else. Some people will take it, right? Because they see it as extra money for them to move out. And some people, they're just difficult and hard-headed, and they won't, right? Because who knows why, right? So if they take it, which is sweet, right? The best part of it is that you can get your tenant out much quicker than going through the actual eviction process, right? Where the actual eviction process might take, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5, a year. Who knows how long it takes right now. It could be much faster, right? You can be like, hey, if you move out in 2 weeks, I'll give you X amount of dollars, and you get your place back way sooner, right? So that is a huge bonus because you can get a tenant in there and get the place rented. Well, you can get it turned first, make it look nice, get a tenant in there, and then, you're collecting rent by the time, if you were going through an eviction process, you'd probably still be sitting there, not collecting rent, having that person still in there, right? Not paying not paying because you can't pay, you can't collect, right? So that is a huge, 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 huge bonus. The other huge bonus is there's less of a chance of them destroying the unit, right? Because you're ending on better terms than an eviction and them getting actually thrown out, right? And this is like a huge, huge caveat to make sure that if you do cash for keys, don't be like, they'll be like, oh yeah, sweet, and then like give them money, and then you come back and they didn't move out, right? So how you do it is essentially you make sure they move out, you make sure that they sign a paper that they move out, you make sure that they give you the keys, right? Because that means they have officially moved out in whatever their residency, stopped their residency. I can't think of words tonight. So make sure you only do that and make it clear to them that, hey, we're going to do this cash for keys once you're moved out completely and we have possession of the unit 110%, right? So none of their stuff's there, they're not there, nothing's there, it's an empty unit. So you got the keys in your hand and they have signed a paper saying that they have moved out and given you possession of the unit. That's the only time you should give them money or cash for keys, but that's how you should run it. So if you're struggling with evictions that are taking way too long, maybe try that out. It might help in this environment. Well, it sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't. It's just another little tool in your toolbox of landlording tricks that you can try to, right, this is the best case scenario, and I know a lot of landlords don't want to do it because their ego's in the way. I'm like, I'm not paying them money, they owe me money, or whatever. To me, if you look at the long game, this actually works out way better, right? For you, from a cash flow perspective, from any sort of investment perspective, than letting your ego get the best of you and doing the thing. And again, you should never get to this point if you're good at screening tenants. But like I said, sometimes you inherit tenants, and sometimes you do have to do evictions and cash for keys and annoying stuff. And then sometimes, even however good you screen a tenant and they seem like the best tenant, they might turn out to be the shittiest tenant. So you just never know. It's part of the business. So you just got to do it when you come through it, across it. So anyway, if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll catch you on the next one.